Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. You ever have one of those moments where your entire world shifts in an instant? For me, it happened in the hallway. Just an ordinary walk to the kitchen, glass of water in hand. I wasn't eavesdropping. I wasn't sneaking. I was simply moving through my own home, the house I paid for, the one I thought was still ours, when her voice cut through the air like a blade. I don't even want to hug him anymore. I froze. My hand tightened around the glass. I could feel the cool surface bite into my fingers. She was in the bedroom. Our bedroom. Lying on the bed with her back to the door, legs lazily swinging like she was 16 again, and not the wife of the man standing 10 feet away, listening to her dismantle their marriage in real time. She laughed. That sound. God, that sound. Detached. Carefree. Cruel. Not cruel because of the words, but because of the weightlessness behind them. Like she had already moved on. Like I had become some mild inconvenience in her otherwise exciting life. I know, she whispered into the phone. It's just, I don't feel anything when he touches me. It's like I tolerate it, you know? It's not exciting. Silence. Then another laugh, lower this time. Private. Intimate. Not for me. Of course I want to. I just have to be careful. He's not stupid. My breath left me in one slow, controlled exhale. Not because I was calm, but because the alternative was letting rage explode into something loud, something irreversible. But I didn't move. I didn't march in there and ask who the hell she was talking to. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't confront her. Because I knew something in that moment, something important. Confrontation wouldn't change what I just heard. It wouldn't unspeak those words. It wouldn't put the warmth back in her voice when she said my name. No. If she wanted distance, if she didn't feel anything anymore, then I'd make sure she really felt it. Not through shouting, not through drama, through silence. That was the moment I went cold. That was the moment I stopped trying to fix something she had already walked away from. I turned around, walked down the hall, and set the glass gently on the counter. It didn't shatter, but something inside me did, quietly, precisely. From that point on, she was a stranger. She just didn't know it yet. And the thing about strangers? You don't owe them anything. Not your attention. Not your affection. Certainly not your loyalty. The next few days, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stopped. Stopped asking about her day. Stopped reaching for her hand. Stopped offering pieces of myself to someone who saw me as background noise. And at first, she didn't notice. She hummed in the mornings. Texted at night. Got dressed like she was going somewhere special. I'm sure she thought I was distracted. In a mood. Burned out from work. Perfect. Let her think that. Let her lean into her fantasy. Because I had just started writing a new script. And in this version, I wasn't the husband begging for her affection. I was the man quietly disappearing from a life that no longer deserved me. She thought I was pulling away. She had no idea I was already gone. The beautiful thing about silence is how easy it is to mistake for peace. Especially when someone's used to being the center of attention. She thought I was in a mood. That I'd get over it. Come crawling back with dinner plans or a late-night apology in bed. She underestimated the quiet. It started small. I stopped asking how her day was. No morning good lucks, no reminders to grab her coat, no questions about that coworker she always complained about. When she made dinner, I ate it. No praise. No thanks. Just mechanical bites while scrolling through my phone. When she didn't make dinner, I ordered takeout. Enough for one. She didn't say anything at first. A wrinkle of confusion on her face when she walked into the living room and found me watching a movie alone. Something we used to do together. She lingered near the door, almost like she expected me to pause the screen and make room on the couch. I didn't. You started without me? She asked. I didn't look away from the screen. Didn't think you'd be interested. She sat down anyway, at the opposite end, her body stiff, her silence louder than mine. At night, I rolled away from her in bed. No explanation, no dramatic gesture, just the cool edge of the sheets between us. She stopped trying to pull me closer after the third night. A week passed, then 10 days. And that's when the cracks began to show. Are you okay? She asked one morning. I was rinsing my coffee cup at the sink. She said it lightly, but her eyes betrayed her. There was concern there. The kind that doesn't come from love, but fear. The fear of losing control. I turned and met her gaze. Smiled. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? It was a real smile. Just not the kind she recognized. No warmth. No softness. Just stillness. She blinked. You've been quiet. I shrugged. Just thinking about things. That was it. No follow-up. No invitation to dig deeper. I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and left for work. Let her feel that. Let her sit in the same ambiguity I sat in that night in the hallway, when she laughed about not wanting to touch me anymore. Let her replay it in her head. That's when the paranoia starts. When you're so used to someone orbiting around you, their stillness feels like abandonment. And when you've built your power on being needed, nothing is more terrifying than watching someone need you less and less by the day. She started testing boundaries. Little touches. Casual comments. She came home one night with my favorite wine. Set it on the table with 2 glasses. I thought maybe we could just relax tonight, she said, that half smile on her face. Polished. Measured. I looked at the bottle. Then at her. I'm heading to bed, I said, stretching my arms. Long day. She stood there for a second. Just long enough for the flicker of panic to cross her face. But I didn't give it oxygen. I walked away. Let her drink both glasses by herself. Let her sit in the quiet. It wasn't revenge. It was a mirror. And slowly, she was starting to see what she really looked like, without my validation holding her up. You want to know what really breaks someone? It's not shouting. It's not threats. It's not even betrayal. It's the silence after love dies, and they realize they were the last ones to notice. By the 3rd week, I had perfected the art of vanishing in plain sight. I woke up when she was still asleep. Left the house without kissing her goodbye. I came home later, moved quietly, answered her questions with just enough civility to seem normal, just not enough to give her peace of mind. That's where it starts to wear them down. The guessing, the wondering, the way they lean in, trying to catch something, anything, that might prove you still care. But I didn't. Not anymore. She asked again that Friday night. Are we okay? I looked up from my phone, considered the question for longer than necessary, then nodded once. Yeah, just tired. Tired. The universal escape route. She tried again. She wanted to go out. To that new restaurant she'd mentioned months ago, the one I used to promise we'd try someday. I looked at her, blank. I'm not really feeling it. I didn't argue. I didn't apologize. I just went back to my book. That hit her. Not because I declined, but because I didn't even ask her to stay home with me instead. And that's when she began to understand. She wasn't being punished. She was being erased. Emotionally, I had already moved out. But the house was still ours. The bed was still shared. The routines were still intact, on the surface. But underneath, everything had shifted. One morning, she reached out. Just her hand on my arm while I was getting dressed. The kind of small, familiar touch that used to mean something. I flinched. Not dramatically. Not rudely. Just enough for her to feel it. Just enough for her to realize something was broken that no apology could glue back together. Her hand pulled away like I burned her. And in a way, I had. I let her sit in that space. The one between what we were and what she destroyed with a few whispered words into a phone she thought I'd never overhear. The thing is, she still didn't know that I knew. She thought this was distance, not exposure. She thought I was going through a rough patch. What she didn't realize was that I was preparing the ground for something far colder than silence. I was preparing the ground for a controlled demolition. And I was going to watch every piece of her illusion collapse, brick by brick. But not yet. First, she had to feel the isolation. The absence of the man who once bent over backwards to keep the peace. The man who once reached for her in the dark, just to feel her breathing next to him. Now, she could lie there for hours and never hear my voice. She could sit across from me at dinner and realize I wasn't even looking at her plate, let alone her face. I was methodical with it. Movie nights? Gone. Random texts during the day? Non-existent. Physical affection? Dead. And that's when I saw it. The cracks. The way her eyes followed me when she thought I wasn't looking. The half-finished sentences. The sudden interest in where I was going, who I was with. That's what happens when they lose power. They scramble. Not to fix it, but to control it again. Only this time, there was nothing to control. Because I wasn't fighting. I wasn't resisting. I was simply gone. And she was left performing for an audience that no longer existed. She thought she was careful. She really believed I had no idea. Late-night showers. Phone always face down. Extra hours at work that magically lined up with her new makeup routine and sudden interest in going to the gym again. I let it all happen. Watched. Observed. Never once tipped my hand. I needed proof. And eventually, I got it. It was a Wednesday night. She was in the bathroom, brushing her teeth, humming like nothing was rotting beneath the surface of our marriage. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. Just a quick flash, a message preview. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I wasn't most people anymore. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't have to. Because I saw it. Tonight was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. From Michael. Not M. Not some mystery anymore. Michael. I recognized the name. Mid-level account manager at one of the firms her company partnered with. Met him once at a charity gala 6 months back. He shook my hand like I was someone he didn't plan to see twice. Slick hair. Expensive cologne. Polished smile with nothing behind it. That night at the gala, he said, "You must be the husband." Not her husband. The husband. I remembered that now. And I smiled. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, still humming, I was already lying down. Eyes closed. Breath even. Letting the rage simmer into something clean. Cold. Because now it was real. Now it had a face. And I was done playing dead. I called in sick the next day. Waited until she left for work. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the phone records. Our carrier plan had shared billing she never thought I'd look. But there it was. Michael's number. Dozens of times. Late at night. Midday. Sometimes twice in an hour. Then I checked social media. Private accounts don't mean much when people tag each other without thinking. I found a photo. A group dinner. Michael in the corner. Her beside him. Not touching, but the way they looked at each other? It told me everything. And I wasn't angry. I was ready. I made a plan. Step 1. Gather evidence. Screenshots. Cross-reference timestamps. Locations. Messages. Anything I could use. Step 2. Surveillance. Just once. I followed her from work. Kept my distance. Watched her meet Michael in the parking lot of a boutique hotel on the other side of town. Watched her hug him like she belonged to him. Watched her kiss him. Then disappear into her room. I didn't cry. I took photos. Step 3. Precision. I contacted a PI. Quiet. Efficient. No questions. Just results. In 3 days, he gave me what I needed. Hotel logs, timestamped photos, GPS pings. Everything. Tied with a bow. And that's when I made my move. Not a confrontation. Not a fight. A calculation. Because she didn't just cheat on me. She lied to my face. She shared my bed. She smiled like a woman with nothing to hide. And now, she was going to lose everything. But not because I screamed. Not because I begged. Because I prepared. Because I waited. Because when the hammer drops, it won't just break her heart. It'll shatter her world. The first strike wasn't loud. It was surgical. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to throw anything. That would have given her too much power, would have shown her she still mattered. Instead, I printed everything. The texts. The call logs. The hotel receipts. The photos of her and Michael entering the hotel and leaving 2 hours later, hair messy, smiles lazy. The kind of evidence that didn't need commentary. Then I sealed it all in an envelope. Not for her. For someone else. Her parents. She always painted our marriage as stable in front of them. Bragged about our dinners, our vacations, the flowers I brought home. Said things like, "He's so steady. So dependable." They adored me. Called me the son they never had. And now they were going to see the real story. I didn't put a return address. Just a short note inside. Ask her about Michael. 2 days later, I got the call. Not from her. From her mother. Her voice was tight. Quiet. Humiliated. I don't know what to say. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because that moment wasn't about me. It was about her, standing in her parents' kitchen, watching their faces change as they flipped through the pages. That was the first collapse. She called me 6 times that day. I didn't pick up. I let the silence speak louder than any accusation. Later that evening, she came home early. Earlier than usual. No words. Just tension. Like the walls were heavier. Like even the air had turned against her. She hovered in the doorway of the living room, like she was waiting for permission to speak. I didn't offer it. I didn't even look at her. She eventually walked away. And that was the second collapse. She wasn't used to being invisible. Wasn't used to being the one watched in silence. She tried to reset. That weekend, she bought groceries for a home-cooked dinner. Set the table. Lit a candle. Even wore the red dress she used to save for date nights. I came home late. Told her I'd already eaten. Walked straight past her and into the shower. When I came back out, the candle had been blown out. The dress was gone. She sat on the edge of the bed, facing away from me, shoulders slumped. Still, I said nothing. That was the third collapse. She was unraveling. And I wasn't lifting a finger. Because the weight she was feeling? That was hers to carry. She'd chosen it when she chose him. But the strike wasn't over yet. Because Michael had a wife. Her name was Danielle. And she deserved to know. You want to destroy a man like Michael? You don't scream at him. You don't throw punches. You don't confront him in a parking lot or post something dramatic online. You do it the way men like him never see coming, through the people they thought were under control. Danielle, his wife, had always struck me as quiet, polished. The kind of woman who stayed 2 steps behind her husband and 3 ahead of the lies he fed her. But she wasn't stupid, just conditioned to doubt her instincts. So I gave her the truth. It was simple. I created a secure folder online, labeled discreetly. Inside, every message, every photo, every receipt. A timeline. A story. Their story. Start to finish. And at the very end, a note from me. You deserve better. So did I. I sent it anonymously. She opened it the next morning. And by noon, Michael's world began to unravel. They say you shouldn't enjoy revenge. But watching the fallout from a distance, knowing you didn't have to lift a hand to set the fire, there's something beautifully silent about that. First, his wife posted a cryptic quote on social media. Something about betrayal and dignity. Then she deleted all their photos. Hours later, I heard through a mutual connection that she'd taken their kids to her sister's place. Filed for divorce the next day. Took half of everything. Michael was blindsided. And when men like him lose control, they panic. That's when he showed up. I was walking out of the office one evening, late, alone, when I saw him waiting by my car. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not in size. In presence. Like the weight of his own arrogance had finally collapsed on top of him. Can we talk? He asked. I didn't stop walking. He stepped in front of me. Look, man. I didn't know it was going to get this far. I looked him in the eye for the first time. You knew she was married. He opened his mouth, but I kept going. You shook my hand. You smiled in my face. You slept with my wife. He tried to explain. To redirect. To defend himself with excuses that didn't matter. I let him talk for 10 seconds. Then I said 7 words. I hope she was worth your whole life. And then I got in my car. Left him standing there in the dark. By the end of the week, he'd been demoted. Word spread fast in corporate circles when a scandal like that explodes. His clients pulled back. Reputation tarnished. Marriage over. Savings cut in half. He didn't just lose her. He lost everything. Meanwhile, back at home, she could feel it. She didn't know the full scale yet, but she felt the tension. The phone calls. The silence from her family. The change in my posture. The way her world had shifted just a few inches, enough to make everything feel off balance. And she started to panic. I could see it in the way she hovered. The way she tried to cook more. Compliment more. Touch more. Reclaim what she had thrown away without a second thought. But you can't unbreak glass. You can't unring a bell. You can't unsay, I don't even want to hug him anymore. She wanted forgiveness. She wanted comfort. She wanted the man I used to be. But that version of me died in the hallway the night I heard her laugh into the phone. And now, she was living in the aftershock. If silence is the sharpest blade, public truth is the kill shot. Up until that point, everything I'd done was private. Controlled. Contained. I gave her the illusion that the damage was between us, between 4 walls. But betrayal like hers deserves more than silence. It deserves exposure. She had built her identity on perception. The good wife. The organized one. The charming, successful woman who never missed a birthday, never spilled a secret, never let her mascara run. So I took that from her. Not through violence. Not through spectacle. Just timing. It started with a group dinner. Every month, we hosted our little circle of friends, colleagues, spouses. Wine, laughter, curated playlists, humble brag updates about work and vacation plans. She always loved these nights. They were her stage. She dressed up. Wore that emerald blouse I bought her 2 anniversaries ago. Poured wine like nothing had changed. She greeted guests with fake warmth, brushing her fingers lightly on my arm when others were watching. Playing the role. She didn't know I'd made a change to the presentation file on her laptop. The one she always left open on the kitchen table for when someone inevitably asked, "So, what have you been working on lately?" I waited until she opened it, grinning, ready to show off the marketing deck she'd polished to perfection. But that's not what appeared. What came up was a folder. Labeled simply, Michael. Inside it, every screenshot, every text, every photo, every timestamp. The room went quiet before anyone even spoke. I watched her smile falter. Watch her eyes flick to the screen, then to me, then to the frozen faces around the table. A wine glass tilted somewhere. A fork clinked against a plate. And then, silence. True, suffocating silence. She tried to speak. Her lips moved. Her hand hovered over the mousepad. But there was nothing to click. No way to escape. Her perfect world cracked open like an egg on marble. One of the women at the table stood up. Said something about needing air. Her husband followed. Then another. Until it was just her. Standing in the ruins of her own performance. And me? I didn't say a word. Didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. Just collected the plates. Carried them to the sink. Ran the water like nothing happened. She stood there, motionless. I think she expected me to scream. To confront her in front of everyone. To make a scene. But I already had. Just not the way she expected. And now, there was nowhere left to hide. The next day, I watched her unravel. She skipped work. Took calls behind closed doors. Her phone buzzed nonstop. She cried in the bathroom. Didn't know I could hear her. She avoided the neighbors. Stopped smiling. Stopped pretending. Her world was shrinking. And I wasn't doing a damn thing to stop it. That's the thing about exposure. Once it starts, it spreads. No fire. No shouting. Just a slow, precise collapse. The woman who once dismissed my silence? Now she was drowning in it. You don't need to raise your voice to ruin someone. Sometimes, all it takes is giving them exactly what they asked for and watching them choke on it. After that night, she stopped pretending. The house got quiet in a different way. Not the cold silence I had crafted so carefully, but something darker. Something defeated. She moved slower. Spoke less. Avoided my eyes like they held a mirror she wasn't ready to look into. The phone calls from friends stopped. The invitations dried up. Her inbox, once filled with brunch plans, birthdays, shallow validations, went quiet. Even her parents pulled away. They hadn't called her since the folder landed in their mailbox. I made sure they saw it before anyone else. I wanted her shame to start from home. I wanted her to feel what it's like to stand in front of the people who raised you, knowing they're seeing you for what you really are. She started sleeping in the guest room. She never asked. Just moved her pillow there one night and never came back. I didn't ask where she was going during the day. She stopped telling me. I didn't care. She had become a ghost in her own life. One morning, I walked into the kitchen and found her crying over a cup of coffee. Her shoulders shaking. Her hands trembling. She tried to pull herself together when she noticed me, but it was too late. I stood there for a beat, then turned around and left the room. She wanted space? Now she had it. Every inch of it. That afternoon, my friend Matt from work called. He was one of the few people I confided in quietly, privately. He had seen the change in me long before anyone else. The colder edge. The new detachment. The late nights at the office where I stayed behind, just to avoid going home. You good? He asked. I told him the truth. Yeah, better than I've been in years. He didn't push. Just said, if you ever want to grab a drink, let me know. We did. Nothing deep. No sob stories. Just a beer, a laugh, a reminder that I wasn't alone. I had simply outgrown the place I'd built around someone who no longer deserved it. Meanwhile, back at home, her spiral accelerated. Michael was gone. His wife took everything. His name was mud in professional circles. No one wanted to be associated with him. He had moved jobs twice in a month. No one trusted him. And her? She had hitched herself to a man who vanished the moment it got inconvenient. Now she had nothing. No partner. No support. No image to hide behind. She came to me one evening with something in her hand. A photo. Us. Smiling. Before all this. Back when she still looked at me like I mattered. I miss this, she said. Her voice was soft. Cracked. I didn't look at the photo. I didn't reach for it. I just stared at her for a long second, then walked away. She stood there, holding that picture like it could rewind time. But time doesn't work that way. And regret doesn't come with second chances. It comes with silence. And I wasn't going to fill the void for her anymore. She was on her own now. There's a moment where even the most stubborn soul realizes they've lost. Not because someone tells them, but because the silence doesn't leave. That moment came for her on a rainy Thursday. She came home late. No umbrella. Hair soaked. Mascara bleeding into the corners of her eyes. She looked smaller, like something had been drained from her body. She stood in the doorway for a full minute before speaking. I know I've ruined everything. Her voice didn't shake this time. It was calm. Hollow. Like a woman who finally understood that her story didn't end the way she expected. I was selfish, she said. I wanted more. I thought I could. I don't know. Have both. She waited. I gave her nothing. She stepped closer. I don't want to lose you. Still, I said nothing. That's when her voice cracked. I don't even know who I am without you. I looked at her. Not with hate. Not with anger. Just distance. The kind that can't be crossed anymore. I think that's the problem, I said. That was the first time I spoke to her in days. And the last. The next morning, I started packing. Not in a rage. Not in a frenzy. Just calm, deliberate movements. Essentials only. The rest could rot in that house. Clothes. Laptop. A few keepsakes. One photo of me, alone, hiking a trail from years ago. A version of myself I'd lost and just recently found again. She watched from the hallway. Didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just stood there, hugging her arms like she was trying to hold herself together. I loaded the last bag into the car. Locked the door behind me. But I didn't drive away. Not yet. I walked back up the porch, placed a small box on the front step. Inside? The wedding ring I'd stopped wearing 6 weeks ago. And a note. Just one sentence. You broke something I'll never rebuild. Then I left. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't post a cryptic message or burn her in public again. I had already done enough. Now, it was time for peace. That's the thing about exits. If you do it right, they echo louder than any final word. And her echo would last a lifetime. They say revenge is sweet, but they're wrong. Revenge is noisy, messy. It burns fast and leaves ashes behind. What I found was better. I found quiet. 3 months after I left, I moved into a small apartment overlooking the river. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, barely furnished. But it was mine. Mine in a way our old house never really was. There were no photos on the walls. No scented candles I never liked. No shoes by the door that didn't belong to me. Just space. Air. Stillness. I started waking up early again. Running. Reading. Cooking for one. And not feeling lonely about it. There's a strange kind of freedom in solitude, once you stop seeing it as a punishment. I didn't check her social media. Didn't ask mutual friends for updates. But the silence always tells a story. I heard things. Through whispers. Through mutual connections who didn't know how to hide curiosity in their voices. Michael was gone. Moved to another state. His career? Dead weight. No one trusted a man who couldn't keep his house in order. His wife? Flourishing. She started a business. Never looked back. And my ex? She moved out of the house. No one visits her anymore. Her parents stopped calling. The circle she once ruled with charm and polished lies? Gone. She became the woman people whispered about behind closed doors. The woman who had it all and lost it because she couldn't tell the difference between stability and boredom. And me? I became someone else entirely. I started writing again. Something I gave up years ago. Too busy trying to be the man she wanted instead of the man I actually was. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious. Nothing deep. And that's how I liked it. I wasn't ready to let someone in again. Not completely. Not yet. But I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was just free. The last time I heard from her was a short email. I hope you're doing okay. I miss you. I didn't open it. I deleted it. Because what we had wasn't paused. It wasn't broken. It was over. And that's what she could never understand. She thought I would stay. She thought silence meant weakness. She thought love would keep me anchored, no matter how deep she cut. But she never saw the moment I stopped being hers. It wasn't when I found the messages. It wasn't when I watched her walk into a hotel with another man. It wasn't even when I packed my bags. It was in the hallway. The night I stood outside our bedroom, listening to her laugh into the phone, talking about how she didn't feel anything anymore. That was the moment I stopped feeling, too. Everything since then? Just details. Now, I live with peace. Not loud. Not triumphant. Just real. And I know, wherever she is, every quiet morning must feel like a scream. Because there's no worse punishment than being forgotten by someone who once built their whole world around you. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.